This video clip has been brought to you by IT in Canada, Canada's only integrated social media news network. Find us on the web at www.itincanada.ca.
Hello and welcome to IT in Canada. I'm Michael O'Neill, and today I have the privilege of being joined by Paul Cooper,
Morning,
Country
Michael.
Manager, Dell Canada. Morning, Paul. Thank you for joining us. I wouldn't mind looking at some of the technologies that enable service delivery and customer access and support, moving on to the new project side. So let me just bounce, kind of four of the current trends off you and get your reaction to them. And I'd really like to start with mobility. Mobility is an interesting one because it seems at this point to run counter to your standardization point, because we are seeing a proliferation of devices and operating systems in the mobility realm. What are your customers investing in, and why are they investing in it?
So again, your research has obviously uncovered exactly what we're seeing in the market, and the reality is mobility kind of is huge, and it doesn't matter which customer segment or vertical you're talking about, it is impacting all of them, right? So the healthcare, education, commercial environments, consumers, and there's obviously this big move to convergence in some respects of the devices, right? You have smartphones, you have tablets, you have laptops, and various other form factors that are proliferating. And so, we're seeing customers, really end users, demanding that they have anytime, anywhere access to information, to applications, and to services. And they are imposing that on many of our commercial and public sector customers in terms of support.
Right.
So that's where you get to that other challenge that you talked about, is that seems counter to standardization, and it is in many respects. But that's where client-side virtualization actually becomes a tool that can be used by our customers, as well as system management tools. So a lot of our focus is on both sides of that equation. We recognize that we have to be able to provide the devices that consumers and customers want to use in pursuit of whatever activity interests them, whether it be work or personal in nature. So we have to be able to provide those devices. They have to work in the way that people want them to. But given that 85% of our revenue is generated from large-scale public sector, private sector entities, we need to help them manage that complexity. Right? Otherwise, we have perhaps squandered some of the savings that have been realized through the efforts that I just described. And so we've spent a lot of time developing and acquiring system management capabilities that are appliance-based or enterprise-wide that will help them manage these devices in a way that previously wouldn't have been possible. And so while they may not be standardized in terms of the way they present to the corporation or the entity, they are very much kind of common and similar. And so both sides of that requirement are served in terms of the delivery of these solutions.
So that seems like a really interesting take on mobility. So you're seeing convergence, but more of different devices at the level of the customer rather than in the OS itself.
Right.
And the way that you apply standardization to that is through the system management level layer as opposed to the device layer.
Right. Through virtualization, you can create images that are kind of consumer-centric versus corporate and the like. And you can vastly simplify the management and the experience that the end customer is having with that device in a work setting, let's say.
So VDI helps you then to manage the smartphone, tablet type device?
It can apply across all form factors that are currently in the marketplace, and any that we suspect will proliferate over the coming weeks and months.
Are you seeing a big uptake in VDI?
I would say it's similar to what we saw with virtualization in the data center. There's kind of this curve, right, where there's a lot of activity, a lot of talk, a lot of interest, and minimal adoption. And then if you look back, 3 years later, suddenly that curve starts to rise, and you see adoption increasing dramatically. And I think we're on the cusp of that. There's a lot of people experimenting, piloting, proof of concept with VDI and other technologies like VDI to try and figure out how they can leverage the power of that to help them manage their enterprise in the way they now need to. But the underlying theme is this concept of bring your own device from a consumer perspective,
right,
and the consumer experience kind of encroaching on the corporate world is unstoppable. And we see that, we saw that first in education, which is probably logical, right? When you think about students coming into a university or a college or even a K-12 environment, they don't tend to understand the need for a standard, a corporate,
right,
profile. They just want to bring whatever device they
sure,
like using or happen to have in their hand into that school and use it to do the things they need to do. So saw it first there, but we're very quickly seeing it in healthcare. We're seeing it in other corporate environments, and I would say, in 3 to 5 years, it will be the de facto standard in terms of how people operate.
So do you think that this trend towards mobility and towards many different form factors that help to consume or manipulate as well as create content contributes meaningfully to the ability of organizations to do a better job of service delivery and customer access and support? And if so, how? What's the link in there?
Well, I absolutely think it does. I mean, and it depends on the industry, but putting the compute power, if you will, in the hands of the user in the environment in which they work typically is beneficial in terms of productivity and efficiency. One example I can give you is in the healthcare space, where we have a solution called mobile clinical computing. What that enables is single sign-on and full session mobility. So think about a doctor or a nurse going into a hospital environment and about to start delivering patient care through the day. Using current or yesterday's technology, that doctor or nurse would be logging into and out of a myriad of applications and devices throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
So as they move you from one device to the next, one room to the next for various diagnostic testing, they would have to kind of log in and out of that environment. With mobile clinical computing, which is basically intense virtualization, both from a sort of enterprise and client side equation, what happens is they have this single sign-on and session mobility within their workday. And so once they've come in and they've registered through thumbprint or a proximity card, they can simply move around the hospital environment with their patients, delivering care, and they can get back to the sessions exactly as they were with full security and all of the flexibility inherent. When we talked to one hospital here in Toronto, they anticipated that that would have a measurable impact in terms of the productivity and the time that those doctors and nurses could spend delivering care, which is a critical issue for all of us these days, right, given the rising cost of healthcare.
12% of GDP last time I checked. So.
Right, and from what we were talking about a few weeks ago with another analyst, rising to kind of 19% over the not too distant future. So we that's an example of how anytime, anywhere access in that setting, tailored appropriately, because obviously security and privacy are critical in a hospital environment, tailored appropriately has had a significant impact on the productivity and the effectiveness of the nurses and doctors in that environment. And we now have studies that we've done actually with a number of European hospitals kind of proving that out. And it's minutes per doctor, minutes per nurse, which doesn't sound like a lot until you start to think about how many days there are in a year and how many nurses and doctors we have in a country like Canada. It's a huge saving.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
On behalf of IT in Canada, I'm Michael O'Neill with Paul Cooper. Thanks again.
Thanks.